Hey everyone, and welcome to my June 2023 manga and anime and other stuff pickup. Lots to get through, quite a bit of manga. I did a earlier video spotlighting a specific publisher who I got quite a few books from, but rather than spend too long on this intro, I'll get straight into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. So first up, I have one anime release for this month. This is the limited edition release from the UK of the series. I have previously owned the US edition, but I am thinking of selling that one, namely because this is a Blu-ray only set, and it's Region B Blu-ray, which is compatible with Australian Blu-ray players. Which is not a huge issue for me because I do have a regionless player, but it just means that it's a little bit easier for me to watch this one. But this is Princess Jellyfish. This is released by Anime Limited in a limited quantity. A limited quantity of 1,000 pieces. So this was a series that I don't think ever got a Blu-ray release in the UK. It got a DVD release, which was from MVM, I believe. And for those who don't know, this is a series that Funimation put out many years ago now. They also released a limited edition with Blu-ray and DVD. But the subsequent re-releases have been DVD only. So the only way to own that Blu-ray is from the now out of print, very out of print, limited edition. This has the full 11 episodes on 2 Blu-ray discs. Again, as mentioned, Region B. This also has a 30-ish page booklet, which has, nice interviews and things, as well as all the video extras from Funimation. You can see pretty standard Blu-ray case there. This is the booklet, and on the other side we have more beautiful artwork for this series. For those who don't know, this is a Notamane show. It came out in 2010, 2011. And is based off of the manga of the same name, which is a josei series about a girl, 18-year-old, who has recently moved to Tokyo. She's not very outgoing. She's a little bit of a wallflower, as it were, and a huge nerd. She loves jellyfish unabashedly, and she works as an illustrator, basically just doing jellyfish drawings. But one day she meets a beautiful young Tokyo, I don't want to say socialite, but sort of trendy character outside the closed outside a pet shop that she regularly visits, which has jellyfish available to buy. She had never wanted, she's too socially awkward to go in and talk to the teller, who is this trendy dude. So she's goes there as part of her self-healing process or self-soothing process after a big day in a more trendy area that she's not familiar with, and runs into this other trendy character who she describes as a beautiful princess. That is this character here, and who, after recognizing that she wants to Tsukimi, our main character, wants to go save this jellyfish that she's been watching, because there's whole issues of shared tanks and things. This beautiful princess goes in and helps Tsukimi buy the jellyfish and all the stuff that she'll need for it, and help her save Clara, this jellyfish that she adores. After getting it to her share house, which Tsukimi shares with several other women who are all otaku for various things, this this mysterious beauty just kind of crashes. Oh, it's late. I've been out all day. I'm just gonna crash here. And Tsukimi discovers the next morning that this beautiful princess that she met is in fact a guy who, for his own reasons, has been dressing like a girl for at least a year. And so they strike up a pretty haphazard, maybe, friendship, and which is very unusual because men are completely banned from this otaku boarding house, because all of these young women are really not interested in engaging with the outside world, especially not men. But although that's how it starts, it very quickly turns into Kuronosuke, who is our main male character, helping these women kind of gain more confidence in themselves, who they are, and whilst he's very passionate about fashion and really wants to give these girls makeovers, it's less about that and the transformative nature of style, and more about the fashion industry and that self-identity and the confidence that presenting yourself a certain way can give. So it's less about the ugly girl having a makeover and then everyone wants her, right? And it's more about how clothes maketh the man. And as the manga series continues past where this particular anime adapts, it is more about the very, very cutthroat fashion industry. I've spoken about this series a lot before because I absolutely love stories about the fashion industry, and it's one that has gotten even worse over the last several years thanks to fast fashion and hyper fast fashion. But all that to say, this is a fantastically funny and well done adaptation of a great manga from Akiko Higashimura. This is also one of the few josei manga adaptations we've seen into anime. Not the only one, obviously, but if you are wanting a really fun, funny series that's about friendship and, companionship and all sorts of things, and being proud of who you are as a person, without falling into too many of the toxic tropes that tends to come with a makeover style stories, absolutely check this one out. Although, as I said, if you are in the US, you really can only get this series via DVD now, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, definitely check it out if you haven't. Next, for, I guess, merchandise, although it is a book release, I got the Yen Press release of Scribbles, Volume 1 by Kaoru Mori. This is her black and white Scribbles art book. There's been 3 volumes of this released in Japan. I own all 3 of them in the wideband edition. I initially bought volumes 1 and 2 in the standard Japanese edition, and sold those when I got the wideband. But this Yen Press edition is an interesting release. They have been releasing more art books, which is great. For those who own Yen's previous releases of Kaoru Mori's works, like Emma and everything in Kaoru Mori's Anything in Something, as well as A Bride Story. This is in the same trim size as that. They're also hardcovers with a dust jacket. That's the word I'm looking for. If you're wanting, I got this namely for the actual English translation of all the notes and bits and pieces in here. But if you're wanting a copy of this book and you're wanting larger art references, then I would recommend the Widebun from Japan. They are cheaper than this for one, and they are a much larger trim size. So even though I do have this new English edition, and I'll probably pick up the other two, which will no doubt be released by Yen Press, I will keep my Widebun Japanese editions as well. But just absolutely phenomenal artist, Kawamori. If you enjoy her work, or if you are just an artist yourself and you're wanting a really, really good reference guide, Mori just understands the human body and fabrics and fashion and movement so well. There's so much you can learn from her pieces if you are an artist yourself. So definitely check it out, either in this new Yen Press edition or in the Widebun editions from Japan. Next, I'm going to blaze through these releases because I did a larger deep dive into them. But starting with, or going into manga, I have a bunch of one-shots as well as debuts and one finale, but I'll start with the Glacier Bay Books releases. So we have the one-shots Tonio and One Strange Day. These are both from the Sleepy Child, I guess, universe that Glacier Bay has put out previously. We also have the collected short story, a bunch of collected short story books from the first being Mermaid Town from Tomohiro Sugawa, which is a collected book of kind of nightmarish, uneasy stories that the mangaka is retelling. A journey through their nightmares in this eerie kind of dream world. Then we have another short story collection, which is A Favorable Wind on Full Sails. This is by Aran Tuchka, and very, very much a Garo-inspired collection of manga, notably focused on kind of the nihilism and disconnection of young men with society. So if that sounds like your thing, check it out. We also have probably my favorite, well, I don't know, there's a lot of really good short story collections in here, but this one was absolutely beautiful, ethereal. The Carmen line by Mitsuhashi Kotaro, which is a really dreamy exploration of boundaries between worlds, and notably the boundary between the sky and the sea. Just really, really, really lovely. Absolutely recommend that one. This is a series or a collection of short stories I have also done a specific spotlight recommendation video on, and that is From This Flame. This is a collection of short stories that is just absolutely brilliant. I highly recommend this book, especially if you are interested in kind of esoteric dreamlike stories. I loved this. It's by Omi Konomi, and if you want my further thoughts, check out my previous recommendation video about that. Not a collection of short stories necessarily, but a single volume one-shot. That is Meet Me in the Unkempt Garden by Sojime Asuka, which is the story of a housewife who is having an affair with a younger neighbor as a way to escape the drudgery and I guess her fear of growing up. It's very, very good, but not necessarily one for everyone, especially if you are not a fan of stories about characters who cheat. And then Pandora, which is just the most beautiful new release. This is from a creator that Glacier Bay has put out before. Rei Hagiwara, and this particular book is just so focused on grief and survivors and working through kind of the disconnect of being left after disaster and after losing people. Notably, it's a reflection on the 10th anniversary of the March 11th disaster in Japan, the tsunami and earthquakes, which obviously had a huge impact on Japanese society, but also it's a reflection on the COVID-19 pandemic, which where globally impacted the community, and then also a lot of people have either lost people or have been negatively affected, and are still feeling the effects of that. We are still in this pandemic. We like to pretend we're not, but the echoes of it, and just like the actual COVID-19 itself, has not been eradicated. It still is infecting people every day. But the personal cost of both of those things is such a focal point to this, and in a society wherein we are still grieving both the global community and the Japanese community, this is just a beautifully done book and just phenomenally printed. I highly, highly recommend this release. And last but certainly not least, we have a debut volume for a longer series from Glacier Bay, which is Red Riding Hood's Wolf Apprentice Final Testament of the Moon by Sayaka Mogi. This is a spin-off / sequel of the Red Riding Hood's Wolf Apprentice series, that also by Mogi sensei, but also was released by Kodansha digitally only, and also is related to the False Stars single volume that Glacier Bay put out a year-ish, 2 years ago. I don't know, it's been a little while. Beautifully done, really lovely, lush fantasy piece, wherein humanity and beastkin or something, and hunters who hunt these beastkin, live within this fantasy world, and are at odds with each other. Just really, really good. Highly recommend it if you do like fun fantasy settings. On to more manga. I have another debut for this month of a very highly anticipated series for me personally. It is the first 2 volumes in an omnibus release of Yumi Tamura's Don't Call It Mystery. This is a josei mystery drama about a university student who is on the cover here, Totono, who in the first story, in the first several chapters, has been accused of murder, which of a fellow university student, classmate, to which he is innocent of that crime, but after being arrested and questioned multiple times, he takes it sort of upon himself to do some deduction, not really necessarily as a way to solve the crime, because he believes that, justice must be served for this person who was killed, but more so as a way to prove his innocence. He knows he didn't do it, and so now he is trying to convince a police force who have assumed he's done it, and obviously the true killer is trying to frame him for this crime. I wouldn't call this a Sherlock-esque sort of series inherently, but the character certainly feels like a Sherlock Holmes, wherein through the power of deduction and through the power of conversation and observation, our main character Totono is able to kind of puzzle his way through things. He doesn't actively get involved in like trying to solve murders. He really does not want anything to do with police, but finds himself either directly put into situations where he can't just ignore the situation, or he is harassed by several of the detectives to give his thoughts. In that sense, he feels a lot more like a Hercule Poirot style of detective, but again, he's not like actually law enforcement or detective himself. He's just a guy who keeps getting dragged into this. And saying that, he has a very unique perspective on justice and kind of what pertains to guilt and how, like, the morality behind crime, which is really refreshing, right? I've said it before, I do enjoy like crime dramas and true crime, but in saying that, I'm not a fan of the police. Like, I will absolutely call out propaganda when it exists, and it does in just a huge volume. But if you enjoy kind of mystery series that aren't parading the police as like heroes, then maybe try this one out. Totono is a great character. The second half of this omnibus, so the second volume, introduces a kind of Moriarty-esque, rival, wherein Totono and this other character have very similar morals or outlooks on, crime and committing crime and murder, like killing people as well. But they approach it in very different ways, which if you are a fan of detective fiction, is not that outside the realm of, like, again, the Holmes and Moriarty style of rivalry. Fantastic to have another Josei series available in English. This has been released by Seven Seas, and I think it was a smart idea to release it in omnibus editions, not because the first volume was boring, but I think having two volumes at once really hooks you into the, like, what the series is, the character, and that rivalry dynamic as well. Maybe for weebs, kind of a Light and L from Death Note dynamic is sort of similar. Yeah, I don't know. Someone who's read a lot of detective fiction, I think that's probably the closest thing you can come to in, aside from, again, like, actual Moriarty and Sherlock in Moriarty the Patriot. Yeah, it's kind of that dynamic of characters and sworn, I don't know, rivals, soulmates, in for lack of a better term. I really enjoyed this, and it was one that I was highly anticipating. Yumi Tamura, we have had some of her previous works released, notably Basara, which is very out of print, but you can still get it digitally from Viz. And Seven Seas is her other, like, major sci-fi work, but has never been released. The manga has never been released in English, and from my understanding, the anime is just atrocious. So, not worth watching. But none of that pertains to this, aside from I'm hoping that this does well, so we do see more of Tamura's works available in English. My supposition would be probably Seven Seas, Seven Seeds, maybe from Seven Seas, and perhaps maybe even a re-release or like a new edition of Basara down the line, but both of those are fairly long. This series is also long, but it's currently much shorter than Basara and Seven Seeds, so who knows. I enjoyed it, and I look forward to the next omnibus. Next, we have a manga finale. This is a horror classic from one of the horror greats, my favorite, or one of them. And so this is Orochi by Kazuo Umez, volume 4 of the Perfect Edition. This is a collection of short stories, horror short stories, loosely interrelated by the titular character Orochi, who is this creepy girl who is possessed by snakes, basically. This series initially was licensed by Viz many a moon ago, and only saw a single volume released back in 2002. But with the recent rejuvenation of horror manga, obviously facilitated by Junji Ito, but certainly boosted by the release of The Drifting Classroom, as well as a lot of Umezu's other works. It's really nice that we've gotten this beautiful hardcover perfect edition. We are seeing some more of Umezu's titles get this sort of release down the line, notably Cat-Eyed Boy, which is a really good time. I really enjoy Umezu's works. The Drifting Classroom is fantastic. That's not a short story collection or loosely interwoven short stories. It's a more linear timeline. But if you like creepy kind of ghost story type of reading, then I would highly recommend this one. It is very, 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 very good. On to the continuing manga. First and foremost, I'll start with the Viz stuff. We have one Jump title for the month, a volume that I was missing because, I don't know, my local comic store didn't get it, and then they had to put in like another order. So they finally got it in for me this month, and that is Donded Volume 2 by Yukinobu Tatsu. I adore this series. If you enjoy like punchy, wild, fun, crass action, with a supernatural twist in the same style as like Chainsaw Man, then you will probably enjoy this. I really love the character dynamics. I love how unpredictable and fun this series is. I will also say that, like, one of the big criticisms of the first volume especially is our main female character. She is put in a very perilous situation that is... So basically she almost gets abducted by aliens and is assaulted, but, you know, further to, you know, aliens, the idea behind them is, you know, probing and those sorts of things. So there's a very visceral, horrific scene of her almost being sexually assaulted. She isn't, but of course that can be quite confronting. I will say that style of, I don't call it fan service because it's not titillating. It's never like when the characters lose their clothing or when there's a threat of sexual violence, it's never to make the reader like excited or, you know, interested. It's not servicing the fans. It's meant to be a bad thing. So I understand that criticism, and I encourage people to be aware of that when they are reading, especially because it is the first chapters of the first volume. But I will say that as a whole, the series, although our characters are sometimes just like completely in the buff or running around in their underwear, it's never like sexy. It's never sexualized, and therefore I don't really consider it a fan service or a series with fan service in that style of like, oop, I tripped and fell into girls' boobs. But at the same token, like, I also don't think there isn't any of that in Chainsaw Man, even though we do have characters like running around naked sometimes. It's a very like sexless style of nudity, if that makes sense. I don't know if I sound like I'm justifying something that's bad, and again, make your own decisions to that. I can understand if people are off put by that, but personally I don't have an issue with it. But yeah, aside from all of that, Donded is really fun. Like, it's honestly one of the best action series that I'm reading. Certainly one of the best shonen that I'm reading. I'm a little bit behind on Chainsaw Man because I don't read a lot of things week to week, but this and Chainsaw Man are very much in the same vein. Yukinobu Tatsu was a former assistant to Tatsuki Fujiwara, so, you know, very similar stylings, although art is a little bit different. Yeah, I love the series to bits. I love the cast of characters. It's fun, it's funny, it's really heartfelt, and these weirdo kids, these teens, just are so wonderful to read about. Yeah, I love it. Dondedon's super good, and I'm really happy that I now have the second volume, which means I have the first 3 volumes, and hopefully I won't be missing any volumes going forward, because I don't know how that happened, but I have it like a subscription for the volumes at my local comic shop, so theoretically I should be getting every future volume without having to specifically put in an order for it. Yeah, Dondedon's great. Check it out. Next, we have a Shoujo Beat title. This is another long-running Shoujo Beat series that I really enjoy. Every single volume, I'm like, oh, it's so good. I haven't read this one yet, though, so apologies. I haven't read a lot of these because I was reading a lot for the podcast. So now that I have some time, I'm going to be sitting down and reading these. But this is volume 25 of Snow White with the Red Hair by Sorata Akiduki. Volume 25. I presume, I don't know, again, because I haven't read it yet, that we will have the continuation of the previous volume, wherein our main character, Shiroyuki, as well as Obi, and a couple other characters are trying to figure out the mystery behind this plant that is used to kind of hypnotize characters in order to... It's kind of used as like a love spell potion type deal. Yeah, I love the series. It is fantastic all the way through. I really enjoy the characters, the dynamic between them. It's a royalty series about a girl who escapes her home kingdom after being like ordered to go to the palace because she has this shocking and very unique red hair. She doesn't want to do that because she has larger dreams outside of being a kept woman by a prince. And so she decides to run away and continue her apothecary training. But when she's in the woods, she runs into a young man and helps him with a group of people, but notably a young man who has some injuries. She helps him out. And over the short time that they're together, they really hit it off. There's a very mutual attraction there. But she discovers that he is the prince of a neighboring kingdom. And rather than like the arrogance of the prince from her homeland, he recognizes that she wants to continue her training and that she's very skilled at what she does. So he offers her sanctuary in his kingdom and the opportunity to train under the kind of royal apothecary. And so she takes him up on that. And yeah, it's good. I really like these characters. It's not, again, this is not a series or premise that is rewriting all stories. It's pretty generic, especially for like this. It's not a fantasy series, or it's a very low fantasy series. Insofar as like there's not any magical creatures, there's not magic, this really is like just an alternate European royalty setting. And if you like that kind of thing, it's very Princess Diaries-esque, right? Yeah, it's good. I enjoy the series a lot. I think we're almost caught up entirely with the Japanese release, which is a bit of a bummer because I love the series and I don't like waiting between volumes. But alas, we have been treated very well. We caught up quite quickly with this series, so I guess I'll have to be patient like everyone else does now that we are pretty much on par with Japanese releases now. The last for the regular trim manga is a Yen Press title, another one that I haven't read yet, but this is a series that I really enjoy, although I do need to reread it. It's been a long time since I read the previous volumes, because there's a big gap between volumes, and then I don't think I read the previous volume anyway. I don't know, it doesn't matter. But this is the case study of Vanitas by Jun Mochizuki, aka the mangaka of Pandora Hearts, a series that I really enjoyed. This is the story of a vampire and a guy who has control over a book that can control vampires. It's very good. Very, like, if you enjoy vampy aesthetics, this is set in a kind of steampunk-esque historical France. And it's just, it's got some cool vibes. I enjoy the characters, Vanitas and Noe, who is our vampire character. Yeah, it's just an all-around good time. And if you know anything about Jun Mochizuki, you know that there is definitely tragedy happening all of the time. It's, although it may be comedic, don't rest on your laurels too long, because there will be heartbreak. There will be heartbreak and pain, which is just kind of the general for Mochizuki's works. I really enjoy this one. And if you haven't read it, Pandora Hearts is fantastic. Check that one out as well. Next, we continue with the large trim manga, or we go into the large trim manga. The first one being Volume 2 of Welcome to Demon School, Iruma-kun by Osamu Nishi. This is a long... I probably shouldn't be starting another long series. This is a shonen action series about a normal boy who ends up going to demon school. At least that's my impression. I don't know, because I might hear people in the audience say, gee, I don't remember you picking up this series before. And to that, wonderful listeners and watchers, that is because, again, I ordered Volume 1. I just never got it from my local comic shop. I don't know what's been happening, and I'm not blaming them. I honestly think it's the suppliers or the distributors. But I ordered Volume 1. I never got it, so I have since purchased Volume 1 from an alternate source. And so I'm still waiting for that. I haven't read this yet. I don't know anything about it aside from basic premise. Can't speak to the quality of it. I hope it's good. I have a couple people that I know who've seen the anime. Rin, whom I follow on Twitter, she's a big fan of this series, and it has been releasing in Vietnam, where she is, for a little bit longer, so she's read far more of it than I have. Again, I don't necessarily think this is a premise that's, groundbreaking, but if it's done well, then I will probably enjoy it. I don't know whether or not I'll stick with the physical editions, but it is nice to see a longer title like this being released by Kodansha, especially from a creator who doesn't have like an existing presence here in the West, in the Western manga market, aside from obviously some interest since it has had a couple seasons of anime with an upcoming season of anime, I think. So yeah, I look forward to it. Next, we have the most recent volume of Shinichi Fukura's My Dress Up Darling. This one's still in plastic. Again, I haven't read it. That's the theme for this month. But I love the series. Just fantastic romantic comedy about two high schoolers. One who is very good at making clothes and is very passionate about Hina dolls, which is his family's kind of trade. And then the most popular girl in class, who is just a super fan of a lot of things and a really passionate cosplayer, but has absolutely no sewing skills. And so when she discovers that this guy does, it immediately recruits him to help her with her costumes, and being swept up in her just really vibrant and infectious energy, and also just being a little bit of shrinking violet of a character. He agrees and creates this fantastic costume, and they become very fast friends, and from that, the relationship, feelings, romance bubbles up, and is so, I love these characters so much. They're so sweet. They're such good kids. This is certainly a series. It has an explicit content warning on it. There's no sex in there, but it is very fan servicey. And in saying that, I never, as someone, I say this every time I get a volume of this, I'm certainly not a prude. I don't have an issue with sexy drawings of anyone, but even pretty blatant fan service, unless it feels really creepy and predatory. And this doesn't, it has a very wholesomeness to it, which is weird to say about some pretty raunchy outfits and a lot of fan service. I don't know, the characters themselves just allows this to be a much more wholesome and sweet and heartwarming series than it could have been otherwise. And I think it captures kind of cosplay culture pretty well. As well as, again, that growing up in adolescence and becoming, gaining confidence in who you are. I just really enjoy this series, and I highly recommend it if you enjoy, rom-coms and you don't mind a bit of TNA. Next is another, is a Kodansha title, and that is Blue Period, Volume 13 by Tsubasa Yamaguchi. Again, haven't read this one. I couldn't read this one if I wanted to, because again, I don't have the previous volume. I don't know. I'm missing Volume 12, so I cannot read it until I get Volume 12, which will be next month for sure. But yeah, this is a fantastic drama about a guy who, a little bit later in life, in his late teens, discovers a real love for art and artistic expression, and so makes a snap decision that he wants to go to art school rather than following the expected path that he's always just kind of assumed for himself, and kind of the trials and tribulations of that, as well as the various people who he meets in his, ongoing quest and the artistic pursuit. It is so good. It's so good. If you are an artist, I think it's just fantastic that we are getting so many series, and manga is really good for this, in having series that are so celebratory of the arts, but at the same time acknowledges and recognizes and emphasizes just the huge amount of hard work that goes into being an artist, and sometimes how that hard work doesn't pay off financially or otherwise, in recognition or whatever else. It's just really, really well done. And if you are an artist yourself, I can't speak to the anime. This did get an anime adaptation, but the manga is just phenomenal, and I would recommend it to anyone who's like passionate about anything. But I think it's just really, really, really well done. Check it out if you haven't. We have another omnibus from Seven Seas. This is Yokohama Kaidashi Kiko, the deluxe edition from Hitoshi Ashinano. This is kind of the original Iyashikei series about a android who, in a post-apocalyptic near future Tokyo, or well, Japan, not Tokyo, Yokohama specifically. She runs a coffee cafe, and is waiting for her, like the owner of the cafe and, her, I guess, owner, because she is an android, to return, without necessarily knowing if they are going to return. There's a bittersweet loveliness to this society, or this humanity that exists after kind of modern civilization has fallen. It's quite bittersweet. There's a lot of uncertainty, and I don't expect there to be a lot of answers, but if you're a fan of something like Natsume's Book of Friends or Mushishi or any of these more melancholic Iyashikei, then I think you'd probably enjoy this one a lot. In saying that, I don't think this is inherently like a must-read for everyone. Aria is another good example. Because it is older. Again, it's like the original. It set the standard for a long time. But if you, I can also understand why people might not enjoy this because it's older. It feels very samey to a lot of stuff that has come since. But it's still lovely that we've had a proper release of the series. It was hugely, hugely requested for years and years, and it was one of those titles that I think a lot of people expected or assumed was just never going to be released. So it is nice that we have gotten a proper release from a mainstream publisher. Last but certainly not least, for the quote-unquote normal manga, we have volume 19 of What Did You Eat Yesterday by Fumi Yoshinaga. This is released by Vertical, Kodansha. Kodansha's imprint Vertical. It's always a good month when we get more Fumi Yoshinaga. I say as Yoshinaga's #1 stan. I love the series. This is a ongoing, long-running cooking or food drama manga about a older gay couple in Tokyo, and the various meals throughout their lives. It has very specific instructions on all of the food that is prepared and served and eaten throughout the series, and is just such a lovely little slice of domestic life of an older gay couple, the ups and downs of their relationship and the realities of being an older gay couple in Japanese society. It's just really well done. Interspersed throughout is kind of the drama of their existence, if that makes sense. It feels like, for those who are wanting stories with older queer characters, they want stories about gay characters that aren't just coming out stories. This, I think, will tick a lot of boxes for you. I'm not going to say it's a thrilling, action adventure plot line. It is a genre fiction insofar as that it is a cooking manga, but it's not a cooking manga in the way that Food Wars is a cooking manga. It's a cooking manga in the way that Sweetness and Lightning is. And I just really, really enjoy the characters, their relationship. You feel like these these characters. You know people who have been together a really long time. They act a certain way. And the fact that these two have lived together or been together for 15 years, it just feels really organic and dynamic to a real life older couple who like understand each other's quirks and, you know, annoy each other or upset each other, but like ultimately understand each other. The give and take of a relationship, in a long-term relationship, it's just really nice. Makes me all warm and fuzzy. And again, if you are someone who enjoys cooking, or is interested specifically in like Japanese dishes and how to make them, Yoshinaga loves food. Like, all of her manga would be food manga if it was up to her. I mean, it is up to her, but like, she has a couple things that she's really passionate about and really good at. Food manga, gay manga. This is like the epitome of both. If you've ever read anything else by Yoshinaga, aside from maybe Oku, which is a historical drama, fantastic. The anime just dropped on Netflix today/last night. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. But anything from Garden Dreams to Flower of Life to Antique Bakery, she really indulges in her special interests, which are gay men and and food. And this is certainly that's what this series is. So it is quintessential Yoshinaga. On to the BL. I have a little bit here. I haven't read this one. It is a one and done by Minta Suzamaru, who is, I believe, has had some previous works released in English as well. I think maybe one from Seven Seas. I can't quite remember. It might have some upcoming titles as well. This is also in the shrink wrap because I haven't read it yet. But this is Golden Sparkle. I can't tell you anything about it. I like the cover. I'm always interested in new BL. And so when Sublime announced this one... Sublime? Yes. I was curious, and so, you know, I bought it. I can't speak to it. It might be horrible. Who knows? If it is, I will tweet about it. But otherwise... hopefully it's good. I look forward to it. The other BL manga that I got for this month is the second volume, I believe this is an ongoing series, of The Dragon's Betrothed by Meguru Hinohara. This is... I've read the first volume, so I do know what this one's about. It's about a guy who goes to his family home after the death of his grandmother, I believe. And when he's there, he meets... this weird guy who kind of like attaches himself to our main character, and who we learn very quickly is this like sacred dragon of the area. And when our main character, well, I don't know if it when he was little or otherwise, before his grandmother's death, she promised our main character to this dragon as his bride, or as, you know, his partner. And so the dragon has come not to collect necessarily, but to, you know, see his betrothed and spend time with him. And our main character's like, what the fuck? This is weird. I don't even know you, and also I'm not gay. And you're like, well, I beg to differ because this is a BL manga, so, you know, there's going to be some flexibility in there. I enjoyed the first volume. Haven't read this new volume. I do think that it gets explicit in this volume. At the end of the first volume, kind of their relationship has developed a little bit, so I expect it to develop closer a little bit more. I really enjoy Hinohara's manga. Obviously, Therapy Game is her more popular work in English, and the kind of original to that, which was XXX Secret or Secret XXX, I don't remember, which is what Therapy Game is a spin-off of, was also quite well received. Certainly shorter, understandably, because Therapy Game is a more interesting couple, better dynamic, personally. But yeah, I enjoy her previous work, so this was a no-brainer. I enjoyed the first volume of this one, so picking this one up again was a no-brainer. Yeah, I look forward to reading this and continuing on with it. Next, we have a manhwa. This is also, I guess, technically a BL. Well, it is a BL. It's a adaptation of a danme, one that I love, and one that's extremely popular. This is the comic version of the Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, Modelzushi. This has art by Luo Cheng Kui, I believe. Oh god. Based off of the novel by MXTX. Luo Cheng Kui, I don't know. Apology, I cannot speak tonal languages in the first instance, but Chinese is just, I'm trying, guys. I really am. aka Maotan on Twitter. The comic itself has finished in the original work, but Maotan has been continuing the comic with the novel extras, which are all like super duper explicit on her Twitter. So presumably we will get the follow-up, the side story stuff, as well as the main story in print in some capacity. It is so, oh my god, it's so explicit. Which is not like, I'm not complaining, it's a good thing, but like, dang. For those who don't know, Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation is probably MXTX's most popular danme. Has had an animated adaptation as well as live action adaptation, but is originally a danme novel series. Danme, for those who don't know, somehow, I guess you're new to the channel, is is novels, Chinese novels with gay characters. It's BL, right? Like, it's just the Chinese term for BL. This series is about our main character, Wei Wuxian, who is a young cultivator, but through a series of events becomes the Yiling Laozhou, aka the Yiling Patriarch, who is the Grand Master of Demonic Cultivation. So rather than cultivating his chi or his energy in the normal ways, after war and various things, he decides to cultivate with demonic energy rather than spiritual energy, which corrupts him as a person. It leads him to become like the enemy of the cultivation world, and ultimately he is captured and killed by the heads of the various cultivation sects. But despite being killed, 13 years later, his soul is resurrected and deposited into the body of a young man who summoned his soul in order to get revenge against his family, Mo Zhanyu. So Wei Wuxian he's back to life, baby. He's got a second chance. And through his second chance, he is trying to solve a mystery of this weird cursed arm and other various bits and pieces, and also uncover the real scheme that might have been behind his death and him becoming this villain all along. And by his side is his trusty companion, aka his future husband, Lan Wangji, who is he's the second, he's the younger brother. His older brother is the current head of the Gusulan clan, and in their previous life, Lanjan had fierce affections for Wei Wuxian, but never acted on it. And through being unable to save the person he cared about the most in his a decade prior, now that he has been reconnected with the love of his life, he's not letting that opportunity pass him by again. So but little does Wei Wuxian realize that he is so fucking gay. He's like, no, everyone's a super flirt. Of course I'm heterosexual. And you're like, man, I hate to break it to you, but maybe you should do some like inner self-reflection. It's fantastic. I love MXTX's Danmei. And I really enjoy this series. The novels just finished last month or the month before. 5 in all in English. It's 4 in the original Chinese, I believe. And yeah, I highly recommend it. I personally think the easiest way to get into the series is via the Donghua, aka the animated edition or version, which has 3 seasons. It's all on like YouTube and a bunch of streaming services. This is obviously, it's a comic version. I love the novels as well. But yeah, check it out if you haven't and you are wanting to support more Chinese manhwa comic stuff, or if you're a fan of the series or are interested in getting into Danmei but you're a little bit intimidated by novels. We've got a couple light novels, the first one being, oh my god, okay, this is a short story spin-off of the original series, but this is Ascendance of a Bookworm, I'll Do Anything to Become a Librarian, Royal Academy Stories, first year, by Mia Kazuki, and our illustrations by Yoshina. This is a bunch of side stories for Ascendance of a Bookworm, specifically for part 4, wherein Rosemine, who is our main character, is attending the Royal Academy, and like starts this group of kids. So I don't know anything about this insofar as like I haven't read it, so I can't speak to character perspectives. I would say that looking at this cover, I think it's kind of side characters, observations of Rosemine versus like our main character narrating the full story. Really nice that the series continues to get so much love. I know that J-Novel Club doesn't do print releases anymore. They partner with other publishers, namely Yen Press, to release their titles now. But the fact that they keep continuing with the print release of this is, I mean, it makes sense, but it also, I think, indicates that there's a real love for this franchise. And as someone who continues to collect the series, although I am pretty far behind in reading, I'm really looking forward to jumping into this one once I get the chance. Next, we have the other light novel that I got this month. I think technically it's a novel. I don't know. Who knows? It doesn't matter. This is Raven of the Inner Palace, Volume 2 by Kyoko Shirakawa. Kyoko, I think. This is set in sort of the inner court, the inner palaces of a Chinese setting, imperial setting. Our main character is the Raven Consort, who is, although like very highly esteemed, is very mysterious and really isn't a consort in the traditional sense. She doesn't have any expectations that the emperor will ever visit her. Although now the emperor has been visiting her, much to her chagrin. She's not that keen, but also she's very oblivious initially to his affections for her. I think she's just like, oh god, why does this guy keep annoying me? But unlike the other consorts, of the Inner Palace. She has the magical ability, various magical abilities, which is why the Emperor visits her initially, or the prince, who is going to be emperor, I should say, visits her because he's seeking her help in order to solve a mystery. This is very much like a supernatural mystery style of story with the political intrigues of something like 12 Kingdoms. It's very familiar to something like Inept Villainess or Rat Butterfly, whatever the long title is. I really enjoy that series. I just don't know what it's called. There's been a lot of like Chinese inner court style of stories. Apothecary Diaries obviously is the other big one. This recently got an anime adaptation. Again, can't speak to it, haven't watched it. But I really enjoyed the first novel. It was really, really well done, and this is very much my interest. I was surprised that it had such a magical or supernatural theming to it. I didn't expect that, maybe because I was expecting more so along the lines of Apothecary Diaries. So yeah, that was my presumption, which turned out to be false. But yeah, really, really liked this, and really nice that we're getting a release from Airship, which is Seven Seas' novel imprint. Yeah, check it out if you haven't. It's very, very good. Couple volumes of Danmei, both from the same series. Again, I don't know what happened, but I didn't get the previous volume of this. So when the most recent volume came up on my orders or like my pickup list, I was like, hey, I don't have the last volume, so I had to buy it from elsewhere. But this is MXTX's Heaven Official's Blessing, Tianguan Sifu by MXTX, obviously. This is volume 5 and 6. It will be 8 volumes altogether. So we are 3/4 of the way through. Volume 7 is coming out soonish, and the pre-orders for volume 8, which is the final volume, have opened. So yes, very soon I will have all of this series. Haven't read either of these novels, but we did previously do a spotlight episode on the series itself. The first English novel, I should say, on the Read Right to Left podcast that I co-host with my friend Whimsical Pictures. I had previously I've read the first 4 books, so I was, I have a little bit more context. She has never read any Danmei before, and I've also seen the Donghua, the animated adaptation of this, so as sort of the resident Donghua or Danmei fan, it was fun introducing the series to her, namely because this was the one she had most interest in. The character or the relationship dynamic, I think, appealed a lot to her, which is why she started with this one. As I said, can't speak to specifics on these books because I haven't read them yet, but I know that this series will only get tragic before it gets a happy ending. So I await for my heart to be broken. Bad shit's already happened, and I know that more bad shit is bound to happen, so I'm not going into this with expectations of childhood glee. I'm doing it with a very apprehensive heart. So yeah, what more can I say? Check it out if you haven't. The Donghua is really good, although it is a very short adaptation. Season 2 has been promised for a long time. who knows when that will be released. But yeah, check it out if you haven't. So that was all of the anime and manga and comics and novels and whatever else I got this month. Quite a bit, although not a lot that I read because I prioritized other reading for this month. But nice to have some really strong debuts this month, some fantastic one-shots, and a really exciting finale, as well as, of course, all the amazing continuations. Let me know your thoughts, feelings, experiences with any of these titles. I love reading your comments, and I do try to reply. If you haven't, the most recent episode of the Read Right to Left podcast came out just the other day. It is a platform spotlight where Ray and I read and review a bunch of titles from, as well as the platform itself, Manga, which is really I don't want to say really surprising, but just like a wonderful, honestly, one of the better manga simulpub services available, apps available. You can also listen to our podcast on all the podcasting platforms. You can also find me on my social media. I'm still on Twitter, just whilst it still exists, and I'm not moving anywhere else until it finally implodes on itself. But you can find me there at GWE_reads. There's a link in the description as always. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. It is halfway through the year. It's gone so quickly. 2023 will blink and it'll be the end of it, and I will be like, what happened to the last 12 months? That's how I feel about the last 6 months. It's going quickly. It's terrifying, truly. But yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you in the next video. Bye till then.